It all starts with a guy who wanted to reach the peak of martial arts, but didn't have enough time left to do it. To achieve his goal, he clung to an old legend about a mystical item. This legend told of a golden fruit protected by a divine dragon inside a sanctuary. Hearing this, our MC was surprised and confirmed that the fruit really existed. With that in mind, the warrior goes after the item and finally finds the sacred tree. And there it was, the coveted fruit of immortality, shining like the sun. After a long journey, the protagonist looked exhausted and could barely stand. However, he managed to emerge victorious after defeating the great dragon that guarded the place. Even though he was all beaten up, the man struggled to drag himself to the large tree. Holding the fruit, he believes he'll finally be able to train forever and reach his goal. So, without a second thought, the young man takes a big bite of the golden item. This man's name was Gilfaz Eldragon, and he was known as the strongest in the world. Jumping a few decades into the future, the scene changes completely to a castle. Inside a room, several people are gathered around an old man in his final moments. One of them is Gilliam, the eldest son of the Eldragon family, who is mourning for his father. The old man, who is actually Gilfaz, tells his son not to look so sad, because his time has come. One of the protagonist's grandsons then says the house will be very lonely without his mother and father. At that moment, Gilfaz remembers the legend and realizes it wasn't so reliable after all. Even so, he feels lucky to have had a wife and children during his life. The old warrior then says goodbye to his beloved family before passing on. Gilfaz then says that he has lived long enough and has no regrets in his life. But inside, a voice screams that this is ridiculous, because of course he has regrets. The old warrior laments that if he'd had a little more time, everything would have been different. In his final moments, he cries in despair for not having been able to achieve his dream. The protagonist then stretches out his arm and shouts that he still hasn't reached the pinnacle of martial arts. Seeing this, his son cries, and so Gilfaz Eldragon finally closes his eyes. Or at least that's what it seemed like, since out of nowhere, our MC wakes up as a confused baby. He wonders if he was sleeping, and his body feels strangely light at that moment. Looking at his body, he's startled to see that his hands look like a baby's. He is in complete shock and wonders if those tiny hands are really his. At that moment, it sinks in, and the warrior realizes the bizarre situation of having become a baby. The young man tries to calm down, thinking that for someone of his level, this is very strange. Lying alone in the crib, he thinks this is not normal at all and wonders how it happened. Then a crazy idea pops into the little one's head, and he seems to have finally understood everything. The protagonist remembers the sacred tree and the golden fruit he ate decades ago. He realizes the fruit's effect wasn't immortality, but reincarnation into a new body. The MC breaks into a huge grin and celebrates his luck, because now he can train and get stronger. Looking around, the young man notices several other babies sleeping in the same room. He wonders why he was reborn into the Eldragon family and why there are so many babies there with him. At that moment, the door opens, and a few maids from the mansion enter the room with a cart. Seeing the maids, he thinks it's feeding time, since they're babies after all. Out of nowhere, one of them grabs a goblin and tells the other to prepare the afternoon snack. The women then force a red liquid into the creature's mouth, and the MC wonders what they're doing. The goblin struggles as it's forced to drink the strange contents of the baby bottle. Suddenly, the creature bursts and splatters the red liquid everywhere, getting our MC messy. The little one is all stained, not understanding anything, and wonders what just happened there. One of the women says that if the liquid is diluted, it should be safe, and picks up the protagonist. She then brings a baby bottle with the same liquid closer, and the young man wants to know what they gave the creature. The MC realizes that's not milk, but a liquid with immense and dangerous power. Even though he thinks it's dangerous, the maid starts feeding our reincarnated warrior. His baby instincts take over, and he starts drinking, mentally scolding himself for forgetting he's a baby. But he recognizes the taste and realizes it's ancient dragon's blood, and he can't believe they're giving it to them. So that's what they meant by diluting it, and meanwhile, the others continue feeding the babies. Desperate, he thinks about spitting it all out, but he's already swallowed a little and hopes it won't be the end of him. Another baby spits out the liquid, and our MC thinks he needs to do the same so he doesn't burst. However, a light bulb goes off, and he realizes this isn't a danger but a huge opportunity. He thinks that if he absorbs all this power, he can finally surpass his former strength. With that in mind, the young man decides he'll use this to reach the peak of martial arts. He doesn't know the reason for this, but since luck is on his side, he'd better take the chance. So the MC decides to drink it all, and a red energy starts to form around him. With his face all messy, he tells everyone not to underestimate him at that moment. Full of confidence, the young man mentally shouts not to underestimate the great Gilfaz Eldragon. His eyes glow intensely as he prepares to absorb all the power from the baby bottle. The maid holding him is shocked by the baby's reaction, who drinks it all at once. He goes all in and decides to absorb the dragon's power to achieve what he couldn't in his past life. As he drinks the liquid, the image of a dragon appears, showing the power he is consuming. Inside him, a battle of dragons takes place as the energies mix in his body. The MC is surprised at how easily he absorbs the power, but soon sees that this is perfect for him. After a while, the little one succeeds and somehow survives all that energy. Apparently, the other babies also survived, as their survival instincts are very strong. But as expected from a baby's body, the young man gets very sleepy and ends up taking a nap. 7 years go by, and we see someone counting while doing some very intense training. This is our protagonist, now older, balancing on just one arm with a giant rock. He then tosses the rock up with his legs, showing absurd strength for his age. And with a single punch, the boy shatters the rock as if it were made of paper. This is Zeke Dragon, formerly Gilfas, who admires his physique thanks to the dragon's blood. It's then explained that all living beings in the world possess a type of source power. The dragon's blood that Zeke and the others drank contained an immense amount of this power. Because of this, all the babies who consumed the liquid gained bodies stronger than normal. But Zeke was the only one to absorb it all, and along with the power of the divine dragon, he changed in an incredible way. Even with all the power he absorbed, Zeke realizes he's still at the 1-star level. He's bummed about this because by now he expected to have reached at least 4 stars. The stars represent someone's power compressed to the limit, and the more of them, the stronger the person becomes. In his past life as Gilfas, our MC was the only one to reach the legendary 10-star level. The young man reflects that time has flown by, and it's already been 7 years since he was reborn as a nobody. His mother has already passed on, and his father never even showed up to say hi, which is very strange. Zeke then wonders if 1,000 years have passed since his old life, which would be too long. He realizes the world has become a place of extreme survival, where only the strongest make it. The biggest proof of this is the so-called dragon ritual, where babies are forced to drink the blood. Only the children who survive this crazy test can remain in the Dragon family. And with that, they receive an education as family warriors, but something seems to be wrong. One of the maids tells the boy that unfortunately, she can't answer his question. Zeke gets annoyed because whoever passes the test should get combat training, but there are only maids here. He says he doesn't even care, because he can train on his own, and his physique is more important right now. The young man then asks the maid for information about the other children and the main family. But the woman's answer is always the same. She says she can't talk about family matters. Zeke loses his patience and, with a stern look, asks if that's all she knows how to say. The maid is startled by the boy's pressure, but repeats that she cannot answer. Then he asks if she doesn't find his treatment a bit harsh, but the woman already has her answer. She says she only has orders to take care of him, and Zeke notices she's a 3-star fighter. Zeke then says that's enough for today and heads to the forest, finding it strange to live with someone for 7 years and barely talk. The maid simply stands there, and the young man wonders if she's finally ignoring him for good. Not caring much, the boy enters the woods to start another day of his crazy training. Walking through there, he finds a plant and yanks it out of the ground with impressive strength. Next, our MC unceremoniously puts the leaf in his mouth and starts chewing. He complains about the bad taste of the poisonous grass, but says this is also part of his training. The young man then takes a deep breath and thinks he needs to be patient to endure all this. But he notices a gaze following him everywhere, and it's starting to get on his nerves. Standing in the middle of the clearing, he tells whoever is watching him to come out and say it to his face. Zeke stands there, waiting for the mysterious observer to finally reveal himself. Suddenly, the protagonist feels something moving in the bushes and goes on high alert. Hiding behind the leaves, he tries to figure out what's sneakily approaching. Just then, a giant boar with a sinister purple aura emerges from the woods, staring him down. The boy notices a black mist on the creature and wonders what it is, since it didn't exist in his time. The creature sniffs the ground, preparing to turn our MC into its lunch for the day. The monster then glares at the young man and unleashes its full aura, preparing to attack. Without wasting any time, the boar charges at full speed toward the young man to finish him. But Zeke doesn't even flinch and gives a mocking smile, showing he isn't afraid. With a swift movement, he dodges the creature's attack as if it were nothing. And with his fist glowing gold, the protagonist prepares to land a solid punch on the creature. With a single blow, the boy sends the giant boar flying through the air effortlessly. He's impressed by this, as a simple touch on something on the same level generates all this power. Carrying the creature on his back, he gets tired of being ignored and considers the idea of taking off. The young man thinks that if he goes anywhere, it will definitely be to the sea. Meanwhile, the mysterious background character is shocked by the boy's strength, who noticed him even while hidden. The cloaked figure knows that Zeke's father doesn't care about him, which is why the boy is always closely watched. Even though he's an illegitimate child, he still has the leader's blood, and that makes things interesting. Sometime later, back in his cabin, the young man notices some strange movement outside. Suddenly, the scene changes to our protagonist's house, where the sun is shining brightly. With a backpack already on, he senses the presence of 3 4-star fighters and 1 5-star fighter. Peeking through the door, he overhears the men's conversation and realizes they don't seem to be a threat. So the boy opens the door and asks what men like them are doing in a place like this. The men are surprised, and Zeke notices the Dragon family emblem on their uniforms. One of the men then steps forward, approaching our protagonist. They introduce themselves and say they've come to escort young Master Zeke to an exam. Our protagonist is completely shocked by the news and wonders what exam this is. He then freaks out and yells that he can't take an exam because he's never been taught anything. Against his will, the young warrior is taken away by the family's men. Now in a new uniform, he never thought he'd return to the main estate. And so, our MC and the other boys arrive at the gigantic mansion of the Dragon family. Zeke recalls that he was taken to the main house, not to live there, but to take an exam. The reason was an educational institution exclusive to the family called the Dragon's Nest. During the 1,000 years that passed, the Eldragon family created this special school for its members. But RMC gives a slight smirk because he hasn't had a single class in these 7 years. Even so, the exam was mandatory, which is why they brought him from so far away just to participate. He's annoyed because this happened right when he was planning to get out of there. Crouching in the courtyard, the boy feels a bit lost, observing the other children around him. Just then, a young man with blue hair named Rangus approaches and asks if he's okay. The protagonist asks who he is, and the young man introduces himself, saying he saw him looking troubled. Our MC then faces the blue-haired boy and starts to analyze the figure in front of him. He notices that the boy seems shy but is much more perceptive than he appears. Zeke then stands up and apologizes for just standing there in that weird way. He then introduces himself as Zeke and confirms the name of his new, nice classmate. The young man explains that he was just confused about what they were going to do in the so-called exam. Rangus is surprised and says that the content of the test doesn't usually change every year. Zeke then shocks his new friend by saying he knows nothing about the test, which is very dangerous. Just as the blue-haired boy was about to explain, an extra appears, shouting and calling Rangus a weakling. The two of them turn to see who the funny guy is that showed up looking for trouble. A guy named Retin appears and immediately starts making fun of Rangus, telling him to go home. The bully then asks what a weakling like him is doing there at the Dragon's Nest exam. The bully keeps provoking the blue-haired boy, saying his father is a fake dragon and that he doesn't stand a chance. Seeing the scene, our protagonist clenches his fist, already getting fed up with that extra. It's explained that the Eldragon family has a well-defined hierarchy starting with the fledgling dragons. Above them are the soldiers and captains, and at the top of the pyramid are the elders. At the very bottom are the pseudo-dragons, who are those who failed the school's test. Our MC then gets involved in the argument and asks the bully what his problem is. He questions how the other guy can know the result when they haven't even tried the exam yet. The big guy turns to our MC and asks what his deal is, but Zeke just wants to know why the blue-haired boy can't pass. Losing his patience, the brute grabs the blue-haired boy and yells that's because he's weak. Poor Rangus is left speechless upon hearing the harsh words from his classmate. Zeke gives a little smile and says that actually, the blue-haired boy is probably much stronger than them. The blue-haired young man is surprised to see someone finally decide to defend him. The extra gets furious and yells if the protagonist is saying they are weaker than the blue-haired boy. But the fight is interrupted when one of the examiners arrives, telling everyone to be quiet. The man announces that the Dragon's Nest exam is about to begin and tells the students to get their numbers. Before leaving, the bully shoots a deadly glare at Zeking and says he'll remember his face. Our MC comments that kids these days are too stressed, and Rangus reminds him they're the same age. He still wonders who would get angry at being called strong as they walk to the courtyard. With a look of someone who didn't understand at all, the blue-haired boy is left without a response for his friend. Zeke then thinks that if the exam is mandatory, it makes no sense to say it's impossible to pass. Zeke then asks if it's possible to give up on the test, and Rangus is shocked by his lack of information. With an awkward smile, the blue-haired boy suggests that our MC should give up too so he doesn't get hurt. But the protagonist says with great confidence that someone of his level couldn't give up even if he tried. Not paying it much mind, the young man tells him to hurry up before the exam starts. The blue-haired boy is a bit lost with the situation but agrees and follows our MC. Just then, the examiner explains that the test is simple and they just need to scratch one of the rocks. However, he warns that each of the participants will only have 3 attempts to achieve the feat. Our MC finds the test surprisingly easy, while Rangus next to him freaks out with fear. The protagonist finds it all very boring, as he was expecting something more intense after the dragon ritual. With everything explained, the man then bellows and shouts for the exam to finally begin. The first extra nervously prepares to try his luck and scratch the so-called rock. He takes a sword and, with a battle cry, strikes the stone with all his might. The sound of the impact is so loud that poor Rangus even covers his ears in pain. The boy's sword breaks, and the poor guy is thrown back with his hands all messed up. All the other students are in shock at the scene, and the blue-haired boy continues to hold his head. The boy falls to the ground defeated, and the proctor notes that his first attempt is over. The examiners mock the extra and consider that he has abandoned the test, ordering the area to be cleared. Without even caring about the poor guy on the ground, the man simply calls the next person in line to try. Zeke wears a bored expression while Rangus shrinks with embarrassment and fear beside him. Our protagonist then stares at the rock and wonders what on earth it's made of. Rangus explains that the rock regenerates from scratches and reflects attacks with full force. Our MC's jaw drops at how overpowered the material is, and the blue-haired boy says there's a way. He says that if you circulate power through your body and attack correctly, you can scratch the stone. Zeke then understands that the most important thing isn't the martial art but the control of power. He takes a look at the crowd and thinks that a lot of people will pass, including the bullies from before. Several students try and fail one after another, being thrown back by the rock's force. The test continues, and another extra fails when trying his luck against the indestructible stone. The examiner isn't fazed and continues calling the next numbers in line without stopping. Finally, it's our protagonist's turn and Rangus starts to panic, asking if he can give up. Zeke tells his friend to relax and approaches the arena for his attempt to pass the test. The blue-haired boy's heart is in his throat just from watching his friend go to face that sinister rock. Our MC then calmly walks to the center of the arena under the watchful eye of the examiner. The proctor notices that the boy hasn't chosen any of the available weapons for the test. The examiner asks if he's not going to use a weapon, and Zeke says he doesn't need to, as his fist is enough. The crowd in the stands starts to whisper, wondering if the young man is going to fight empty-handed. Everyone thinks his fist will turn to dust, and that he won't even be able to scratch the stone. Poor Rangus gets desperate, thinking his friend's entire arm is going to go flying. He regrets not having insisted more for the protagonist to give up on the crazy exam. The examiner then shrugs and simply tells the boy to begin his attempt. Zeke approaches the rock and realizes it's a mineral he has never seen before. But our MC doesn't care and concentrates a golden energy in his fist, preparing for the attack. Seeing this, Rangus panics and shouts, trying to stop his friend from doing something foolish. Zeke then smiles and thinks that he can finally use all his power without worrying. The blue-haired boy's eyes widen as he sees the amount of power his friend unleashes. Our protagonist uses his combat technique and, with an explosive punch, hits the rock with everything he's got. The impact is so strong that the stone simply turns to dust, shocking everyone watching. The blue-haired boy's left jaw dropped by the demonstration of strength and can hardly believe what he saw. The examiner, who was mocking before, now gets serious and observes the result of the blow. With a satisfied smile, our MC admires his achievement in the middle of the arena. He thinks the technique was still a bit too advanced for him and looks at the damage he caused. With his hand all banged up, he smiles and tells himself he still needs to train a lot more. The crowd in the stands is left wide-eyed, and the bullies from before can't believe what they saw. Retin is stunned and can only say that the protagonist simply destroyed the stone. One of the girls in the audience gives a slight smile and finds the whole situation very interesting. Rangus completely freaks out and shouts, not understanding how his friend managed to do all that. With a victorious smile, the young man celebrates his feat and shows that he wasn't kidding around. The proctor is shocked and thinks that only someone at the 4-star level or higher could achieve such a feat. He starts to doubt whether the young man is really a legitimate child and recognizes the technique he used. Our MC then approaches the man and, with his hand all messed up, asks for his result. Thus, the examiner announces loud and clear that number 315 has passed. After the test, one of the proctors hands a potion to our MC, and he's left completely confused. With a fake smile, the man asks if he can get out of there quickly, which annoys Zeke. He grumbles that the people of this era are too stressed and goes up to the stands to join the others. Rangus then runs to his friend and congratulates him for destroying the rock, which Zeke says was easy. Our MC shows the potion and asks what it is, and the blue-haired boy says it's a healing potion. Rangus opens a vial and explains that it's the standard type, while Zeke is still suspicious of the drink. The protagonist analyzes the liquid and realizes it's not poison, wondering if it's a spiritual medicine. The boy explains that this medicine is made with extremely rare materials. Its ingredients are herbs from secret realms and cores of divine beasts that are almost impossible to find. Because it's so difficult to make, this potion is almost never seen, but Zeke chugs it all at once. At that, our MC's hand heals instantly and a green energy completely envelopes his arm. The MC asks if it was a spiritual medicine, but Rangus says he doesn't know anything about it. The blue-haired boy then asks if it's that surprising, and Zeke confirms that it is, because his hand healed in an instant. Rangus notices that his friend's power didn't increase and says that Zeke's feat was much more impressive. He is amazed by the potion, which represents 1,000 years of humanity's wisdom. The friend praises the protagonist, and Zeke says his goal is to be the strongest, leaving the blue-haired boy shocked. In the meantime, the examiner continues to announce those who passed while more extras leave, all worn out. The blue-haired boy is super nervous in the stands, because the next number to be called is his. With his legs trembling, the young man stands up and heads toward the arena to take his test. Zeke tries to cheer his friend on, but the blue-haired boy yells at him not to have such high expectations. Zeke doesn't understand his friend's reaction and wonders what he's doing on the ground. In the arena, the blue-haired boy holds his sword with trembling hands, while the proctor tells him to start. With that, the blue-haired boy musters all his courage and attacks the rock with his sword. But the poor guy is thrown back, and the proctor notes that his first attempt is over. Without giving up, the young man gets up and, with a great swing, tries once more to scratch the stone. However, again the rock's power throws him to the ground completely defeated. With an injured hand, the boy is in shock and can't believe he failed both attempts. Seeing this from the stands, the bullies start making fun of him, telling him to give up already. The extra then faces our protagonist with a mocking smile and questions him about something. He asks if Zeke hadn't said that weakling was stronger than all of them there. The bully continues to provoke him while the proctor asks if the blue-haired boy will try one more time. But poor Rangus remains on the ground drained of strength and can barely answer the examiner. At that moment, our MC appears in the arena and asks his friend what he's doing. Zeke then questions why he's using a sword instead of a spear in the test. The boy is confused, and the protagonist says he's simply using the wrong weapon. With his knowledge from another life, he explains that with the sword, the boy won't achieve anything. The extras laugh and shout that Rangus's father doesn't use a spear and taught his son to use swords. One of them adds that changing weapons won't make the slightest difference for the weakling. Our MC ignores the crowd and asks the proctor if it's allowed to change weapons, and he confirms that it is. With a smile, the young man tells his friend that he has permission to change weapons and pass the test. Zeke then asks his friend if he's just going to give up and leave things as they are. At this, the blue-haired boy remembers his father, who was humiliated by everyone for not passing the exam. With newfound determination, the boy slowly starts to get up from the arena floor. He then decides to trust his friend and says he will try using the spear for the test. In a flashback, it's revealed that the young man's father failed to get into the dragon's nest. Despite being called a failure, the man raised his son with great care and love. The boy remembers the training sessions with his father and decides he won't be a fake like him. Back in the present, the young man wields the spear and prepares to prove his worth. But he thinks he doesn't even know how to use the weapon, and so decides to trust the protagonist completely. Our MC then points to his friend and calls him by name to give one last instruction. He tells the blue-haired boy to attack straight ahead with all his might, without thinking about anything else. The boy grips the spear tightly and repeats his friend's instruction in his mind. He thinks a simple strike won't work, but the MC reminds him that he hasn't even tried yet. Ranges fills with courage, and with a shout, says he will try because his friend believed in him. At that, the young man decides to believe in himself and prepares for his final attack. He realizes that upon holding the spear, an immense power flows through his body like never before. With a battle cry, the blue-haired boy strikes the rock with all his strength. The bully scoffs, saying that just changing the weapon won't magically make him pass. But the blue-haired boy feels as if the spear had always been a part of his own body. The tip of the weapon glows intensely as it clashes with the magical stone of the arena. With a gigantic impact, the spear not only scratches but pierces through the rock with ease. The bullies are left jaw-dropped and shout in shock, unable to believe what they just saw. One of the proctors is impressed and comments that the boy not only scratched but pierced the stone. Zeke congratulates his friend, who is completely lost and wonders what he just did. Without wasting time, the examiner jots down the young man's result on his clipboard with a serious face. Then, the man announces loud and clear that number 414 is passed. Our MC then hugs his friend and congratulates him for passing exactly as he predicted. At that, it finally sinks in for the blue-haired boy, and he hugs the protagonist, celebrating his victory. The extras refuse to believe it and shout that it was all just a big coincidence. With all the tests finished, the proctor yells and announces the end of the admission exam. He then tells all who passed to gather because the entrance ceremony is about to begin. The two friends talk and Ranges wonders if there will be more tests after the ceremony. The blue-haired boy explains that it's not what they do, but what will happen to them from now on. He continues, saying that the leadership of the Eldragon family will give a welcome speech. Suddenly, a white-haired man with a sinister aura and red eyes appears on the scene. Zeke asks who the tough-looking guy is, and Ranges freaks out, saying he's the head of the family. Our MC complains about the man's unfriendly face, and the blue-haired boy immediately covers his mouth. The blue-haired boy begs his friend to keep quiet so he doesn't start trouble with the big boss. Even so, the protagonist stares at the leader and begins to analyze the family's current strength. Looking at everyone there, he realizes that this is the true strength of the Eldragon family. Zeke analyzes the crowd's strength and notices there are several 7-star and 6-star guys. The protagonist then faces the family head, Balza Eldragon, and discovers he's at the 8-star level. He's shocked because 1,000 years ago, there were hardly any people at this level of power in the whole world. Our MC then turns to his friend and says he doesn't like the man's face, who happens to be his father. One of the proctors calls for attention and announces that Master Balza will begin his welcome speech. With a sinister aura, the man tells the young ones to strive to become the blood of Eldragon. The protagonist doesn't seem the least bit impressed by the pressure the family leader releases. However, the other students can't handle the pressure, and some even complain that they can't breathe. Our MC looks to the side and sees that his friend Ranges is also struggling with the man's aura. He realizes that all the other children are being completely crushed by the leader's pressure. Zeke feels a tremendous hatred coming from the man and confirms that he really doesn't like him one bit. After his super motivating speech, the head of the family simply turns and walks away. At this, one of the officials claps, all excited by the words of his great master Balza. The blonde man shouts and says that the chief's words were truly very gratifying. He then gets on stage and says he'll skip the boring speeches and be more direct with the crowd. With a smile on his face, he shouts for the young ones to do their best while our MC wonders who he is. Then the man says that those who worry about nonsense go bald, and with that, the tension in the place suddenly vanishes. The bully who was acting all tough before is now completely lost with the situation. Our two friends are also confused and just watch the whole scene in silence. Then the proctor from the first test shouts that he will announce the dorm assignments for the new students. Zeke asks if they aren't all going to the same place, and Ranges explains that there are 4 dragons' nests. The blue-haired boy points out that the students are divided among the east, west, south, and north dorms. When our MC's number is called, he says goodbye to his friend, and they both wish each other good luck. Arriving at his destination, the young man comes face to face with a gigantic mansion, which is the East Dorm. Walking through the corridors, he thinks about how things have changed in 1,000 years and tries to find his room. After a while, the boy finally finds the door and complains about getting lost on the way. He then turns the doorknob, all excited to finally meet his new roommate. With a big smile, the protagonist opens the door and apologizes to his new partner for being late. but his expression changes completely when he sees the familiar figure already inside. To his surprise, his roommate was none other than his friend Rangus. Our MC smiles and says it seems the two of them have a very strong connection after all. The blue-haired boy is super happy because he was afraid of being alone in the room. Once in the room, Zeke asks if they have anything else to do for the rest of the day. His friend says that training starts tomorrow and asks if the protagonist didn't hear the instructor. With a thumbs up, the young man proudly admits that he paid absolutely no attention. The blue-haired boy then says they need to sleep early because training will start first thing in the morning. Looking out the window, our MC begins to reflect on recent events. He remembers that he wanted to run away, but the exam with the rock and the potion turned out to be quite interesting. To understand the changes of 1,000 years, the young man decides that staying with the family might not be a bad idea. With this decision in mind, a month flies by inside the Dragon Academy. An instructor shouts at the group during a tough workout, explaining about the dragon's breath. He yells that everyone needs to master the technique, and poor Rangus struggles to keep up. Meanwhile, a man with an eye patch observes the students with a very serious face from a distance. The man notices that some have already gotten the hang of the technique, especially a blonde girl named Lika. He realizes that the girl's power is overflowing, which proves she's close to the 2-star level. Suddenly, he sees Zeke training with giant rocks on his weights and is completely confused. The instructor knows the young man is the chief's son but had no training and finds the scene very bizarre. Our MC then realizes that his old technique has been improved and simplified by the family. It's explained that breathing techniques are skills to absorb power from the atmosphere. With this, a person can circulate energy through their body and increase their own strength. That's why the ancient families created their own methods and guarded them as state secrets. Jolfus's original technique was the only one that could be used in motion, but it was very difficult. To get around this, the family simplified the technique so that everyone could use it and become stronger. The protagonist gets all excited, thinking about how other martial arts have evolved in 1,000 years. He then takes a look at this Lika girl, who seems to be very skilled in the tough training. With the training over, the whole group gathers in the cafeteria for a well-deserved mealtime. While some extras are dead tired, our MC stacks plates as if it were nothing. With his face all messy, the boy devours a piece of pie with contagious happiness. He then asks Rangus the reason for his gloominess and reminds him that an empty stomach can't stand up straight. The blue-haired boy is shocked by his friend's energy, and Zeke says that actually their stamina is just very low. Zeke offers some food to his friend, but Rangus refuses, saying he'll eat his own. The protagonist then takes a look around the cafeteria and notices that some students are well trained. Just then, a blonde girl approaches the table and compliments our MC, leaving him a bit confused. He wonders who the girl is, and the blue-haired boy even spits out what he was drinking. He's so shocked. An extra explains that she's Lika, the chief's daughter, but protagonist still doesn't recognize her. Rangus freaks out because she's a candidate for leader, and Zeke says he's also the chief's son, even if he's illegitimate. The blue-haired boy is shocked by the revelation and asks if it's really true. The girl then confirms that she's Lika and asks if our MC is really the leader's illegitimate son. She then questions how he destroyed the rock with his hands without any support from the family. The young man says it's because he is who he is and tells his friend to stop spacing out and eat already. The blonde girl keeps observing the protagonist with a look that says she found it all very interesting. With a big smile on her face, she says that our MC is a truly intriguing guy. She then makes a proposal and asks what he thinks about joining her and serving her in the future. The girl explains that she wants him as her subordinate and that she can be the support he needs in the family. An image of the two as great figures of the family appears, showing the potential of the alliance. She asks for his strength to become the head and promises to treat him well, but he refuses the offer on the spot. The girl is surprised by the refusal, and the protagonist simply continues eating his snack. With a serious face, she turns and asks if he's also eyeing the position of family leader. Her eye glows intensely as she repeats the question about the chief's position. Zeke analyzes the girl's strength and notices she's almost at the 2-star level, which is interesting. Zeke says bluntly that he has no interest in being the chief, leaving Lika furious and confused about his goal. The girl becomes enraged by the answer, and with a glint in her eye, prepares to attack the protagonist. Suddenly, one of the blonde's followers tries to punch our MC, but he doesn't even flinch. Then, the extra pulls out a knife and stabs it into the table right next to our hero to intimidate him. With a golden aura, the young man says he won't serve anyone because he's already at the top. His eye glows intensely as he declares with full confidence that he is the strongest of all. The girl is completely in shock from the pressure of the boy's aura and can't even move. She wonders how she ended up being intimidated by an unknown illegitimate child like him. Rangus then tries to calm the situation down while the protagonist goes back to eating as if nothing happened. The blonde doesn't accept defeat and shouts that she will force Zeke to obey, challenging him to a fight. Our MC calmly continues eating his bread while the blue-haired boy goes into a total panic. Suddenly, the crowd starts running out of the cafeteria, talking about a duel on the training field. The extras get excited because Lika is going to fight, but no one knows against whom or why. The crowd then gathers in the courtyard, where the girl is already waiting for her opponent in the center of the arena. Zeke's friend asks if he's okay, since his opponent is the candidate for family leader. The MC notices that the blue-haired boy started speaking formally, and the young man says it's because he's the chief's son. Zeke doesn't care about that, but Ranges continues to freak out, begging his friend to give up the fight. He explains that Lika is a prodigy from one of the 4 great families and has mastered the sword since she was 7. Our MC says he only understood that she's the chief's daughter, and the blue-haired boy shouts, asking why. The young man says it's all new to him and tells his friend not to ask because he doesn't know anything either. The blue-haired boy continues to freak out while our MC's eyes sparkle with pure excitement. With a grin from ear to ear, he says that because he doesn't know anything, the fight will be much more fun. Ranges yells that no matter how strong Zeke is, Lika is too strong for him to face. The protagonist says he doesn't run from a fight and points to the girl, who is already ready for combat. With a golden aura, the girl wields her sword and prepares to finish our hero. She then asks if the chatter is over and if the young man is finally ready to get beaten. The blue-haired boy's heart is in his throat, and the protagonist says with a smile that everything's ready. Ranges then runs away, wishing his friend to be very careful with the dangerous opponent. Zeke then asks Lika why she's so determined to fight him there. The girl says she will be the head of the family, and for that, she needs him to join her side. The young man asks what that has to do with him, and the blonde thinks he doesn't even know the family's situation. She explains that there are 5 candidates for leader, and each of them is from one of the 4 branch families. These families are the most important, and that's why everyone is there to compete for power. Our MC finds it all very complicated and says he understood but didn't understand at the same time. The girl says that as a candidate, she needs to strengthen her power base, which is why she wants Zeke. She then stumps hard on the ground, creating a small crater with the force of her body. The protagonist simply stands there, observing the girl's demonstration of strength. Just then, the blonde leaps with all her might toward the young man, shouting that she will defeat him right there. With her sword in hand, she comes down with a powerful strike on our hero. But the young man dodges the attack with a swift movement as if it were absolutely nothing. The protagonist dodges by a hair's breadth and his eyes widen at the speed of the girl's strike. The girl shouts that he won't escape as she attacks with everything, but the young man has already dodged. The extras are shocked by her speed using such a heavy training sword. With a little smile, our MC continues to dodge, leaving the blonde completely furious with the situation. Then the crowd comments on her power control and how her attacks get faster and faster. Lika gets irritated and wonders why she can't hit the boy at all. Zeke continues to dodge with the greatest of ease, while the girl shouts that she can't hit him. From a distance, the blue-haired boy's jaw drops at his friend's impressive skill. Our MC analyzes the fight and thinks he's never seen this martial art, and her speed is high for a 1-star. The opponent gets annoyed by his calmness and yells for him to shut up and focus on the fight. Then the young man clenches his fist, which glows blue, and says he's totally focused on the combat. In the blink of an eye, he grabs the girl's arm and stops her attack on the spot. Taking advantage of the opening, he lands a precise blow on the girl's back with all his might. The blonde's eyes widen and her mouth hangs open, unable to believe she was hit. The impact of the punch throws the girl forward, and she almost loses her balance and her sword. Seeing this, the crowd in the stands is shocked and wonders who that guy is. The opponent questions how her attacks don't connect, since she should be much faster than him. Zeke admits that she is faster than other 1-stars but points out that's not everything. He then says with a serious look that she is still just a 1-star fighter. The girl says he also only has 1 star, and he explains that he reads her muscles and breathing. He says the rest is experience, and with it, he can read almost all of her actions. The girl gets furious at his audacity and yells that it's ridiculous, lunging at him. Our MC isn't fazed by the blade coming at him and says he already warned her. With a backflip, he dodges the blow and already positions himself for his counterattack. Grabbing her arm from behind, he says he can see her movements, leaving the girl in shock. With a powerful punch to the back, he sends his opponent flying into the arena wall. Then the young man stands in his fighting pose, observing the result of his powerful blow. The crowd in the stands goes wild and shouts Lika's name, unable to believe she actually lost. The blue-haired boy celebrates that Zeke is amazing, but the MC says the fight isn't over yet. Suddenly, the girl stomps hard on the ground, showing she still has plenty of energy to fight. Our MC smiles and notices she used her power to withstand the punch and finds it impressive. Even all beaten up and with a cut on her face, the blonde gets up and faces the protagonist. The friend tries to stop the fight, but Zeke tells him to stay away so he doesn't get hurt in the process. Then the protagonist notices something and wonders if she has reached the 2-star level. At that, the girl unleashes a sinister yellow aura, preparing to turn the tables on Zeke. The extras are shocked and point to the aura, which is the mark of a 2-star fighter. It's explained that 2 stars is the level at which one can emit power outward, creating an aura. The girl then thanks the protagonist because thanks to him, she has finally reached this new level. Her eye glows intensely as she prepares to show off all her new power. With overwhelming power, she shouts that now our hero doesn't have the slightest chance of winning. With a big smile on his face, our MC finds the opponent's new speed simply incredible. He dodges a blast of yellow energy and admits that her new power is quite shocking. Just then, a cut appears on the young man's cheek, and he wonders how he was hit by her. He's sure he dodged the blow, but the girl scoffs, asking if he gets it now. The girl explains that this is her true ability and faces him with great confidence. With her new 2-star aura, she feels much more powerful and ready to finish him. She then says she will show him the true technique of her thunder sword. The protagonist is excited because he'll get to see a martial art he's never seen before. With a grin from ear to ear, he shouts that this is awesome and the fight is perfect. The girl then prepares to use her special technique, the greatsword's lightning. Our MC is caught off guard by several bolts of lightning and wonders what on earth that is. He freaks out because he can't believe she can manipulate lightning and finds it completely absurd. The opponent notices the young man's reaction as she prepares another of her electric attacks. She scoffs, saying that for someone who finds it absurd, he seems to be having a lot of fun with the fight. He realizes that her power is very different from before and that dealing with the lightning will be difficult. The young man is shocked by the drastic change in power just from her going up a single star. From a distance in the stands, the blue-haired boy watches everything, super worried about his friend. It's explained that her movements are simple, but with the aura, the technique's power has exploded. Zeke thinks that her ability to cover herself in lightning is quite interesting and that he could attack. But he decides to wait because he's very curious to see the true power of that technique. The girl notices the young man's smile and says he seems pretty relaxed for someone who's getting beaten. With that, she shouts that she'll wipe that smile off his face and lunges at him with everything she has. Our MC plants his feet firmly on the ground, preparing for the impact of the girl's electric blow. She then uses her swift thunder technique and brings her sword down with absurd force. The protagonist feels the power of the attack and describes it as if a lightning bolt were falling from the sky. The blow hits the ground and kicks up a ton of dust, destroying part of the training arena. Seeing the scene, the blue-haired boy completely freaks out and shouts his friend's name, worried about the outcome. But amidst the smoke, the young man emerges, all beaten up but still standing and ready for more. Without giving him time to breathe, the blonde sends another electric attack with her sword. Zeke then kicks a piece of rock, showing that he still has the strength to counter the blows. Just then, the friend runs into the arena and asks Lika to stop, as the MC might not be able to take any more. But the girl says that stopping now would be an insult to the honor of a warrior like him. She then offers for him to surrender and serve her, and in return, she would stop her attacks. With a slight smile, our protagonist refuses the offer without saying a word. The girl gets the message and says she will finish him using all her power once. Then the girl concentrates all her energy into the sword to use her strongest technique. With an intense glow, she prepares to use her secret art, the thunder from the heavens. A gigantic bolt of golden energy falls from the sky and heads straight for the young man. Our MC is caught squarely by the blow and screams as electricity takes over his body. Seeing his friend getting zapped by the attack, the blue-haired boy screams Zeke's name in pure desperation. Completely defeated, our MC passes out on the ground after the opponent's powerful electric attack. At this, the blonde sticks her sword into the ground and declares that the fight has finally come to an end. With a serious look, she apologizes but says the match is over for good. But out of nowhere, a golden light appears and the girl's jaw drops at the sight. Turning around, she is shocked and wonders how that could be possible. He then gets up with an aura of lightning and asks if that is a lightning aura. The young man then gives a little smile and says he doesn't know anything either. He then shouts with his arms crossed that he also doesn't know how he got the power. Hearing this, the girl is left completely confused and speechless. Then he explains that he took the hits on purpose and somehow managed to use the power. He continues, saying he used his King Dragon's breath while taking the attacks. At that, the technique reacted with the blonde's lightning aura, and something bizarre happened. With this, the lightning accumulated in his body, and out of nowhere he was able to manipulate the power. The MC then says she must have a unique constitution to be able to use this power. Zeke then wonders if her entire family has this same bizarre ability. The young man is excited because that was excellent and very unexpected training. Most importantly, he is thankful because he also reached the 2-star level. Unleashing his new aura, he declares that the fight isn't over and is far from the end. With his eye glowing intensely, he shows that now the tables will truly turn. Now with both of them at the same power level, the real battle will finally begin. With a confident smile, our MC says the fight is far from over. Just then, a bolt of golden energy cuts through the air with impressive speed. The new power throws the young man forward, and he almost loses his balance from the force. It's explained that the ability strengthens muscles and nerves, but his senses are a mess. Even all beaten up, the protagonist says he needs to get used to this new power. In the stands, the blue-haired boy can barely keep up with the battle between the two candidates for leader. He wonders if Lika's blows aren't hitting anymore because Zeke is dodging everything. Seeing the scene, the girl gets furious and shouts that he's making fun of her. But the protagonist smiles and says he's not making fun of her at all. With his hand glowing, he stops her sword and says he considers her a real threat. The girl retreats annoyed while the young man backs away with a determined look. Our MC then stretches and says it's time to end this by creating a new technique. The opponent is confused and he decides to call the move special form, which is very creative. The man with the eye patch freaks out, not understanding how the boy creates powers out of thin air. Out of nowhere, he appears in front of the blonde and asks if she was spacing out. The girl is in shock and he announces his combat art of the dragon's destruction. With a move called Lightning Peak, he hits his opponent with all his strength. The girl takes the full force of the attack and falls to her knees, completely defeated and electrocuted. Seeing the result of the fight, the blue-haired boy announces that the match is finally over for good. The protagonist then approaches the girl on the ground and says it was a very interesting fight. The girl on the ground can't believe she was defeated and wonders how she lost the fight. Meanwhile, our MC gives that slight smile of someone who already expected victory. On her knees, the girl begins to cry because she really needed to become the head of the family. It's revealed that she has to surpass her siblings, which is why she couldn't lose under any circumstances. Just then, the protagonist approaches and compliments her strength, saying the fight was very fun. He then extends his hand to help the girl get up from the floor of the training arena. With a big smile, he says it would be boring if they only fought that one time. Seeing the young man's attitude, the opponent turns bright red and is at a loss for words. Zeke then calls Lika by her name and invites her to train together again. He even adds that he's already super excited for the next fight between them. The girl accepts his help and admits it was a complete defeat because he is too strong. A few hours pass, and the scene changes to a sinister place called the Rift. Inside, a mysterious white-haired man faces an army of bizarre creatures. Without any fear, the guy stands still as the monsters rush towards him with everything they've got. With a deadly gaze and his eye glowing red, he prepares to wipe them out. Just then, a red dragon aura appears and the pressure crushes the nearest creatures. One of the creatures is cut in half by a beam of red energy that appears out of nowhere. The warrior then prepares to use the first form of his deadly combat art. He unleashes an attack called Genesis that sweeps the battlefield with pure power. The red energy cuts through one of the monsters as if it were made of paper. With his blood-stained sword, the mysterious warrior stands amidst the creatures' bodies. The scene then changes, and we see the same man passing by several soldiers running all over the place. He then jumps through a completely destroyed area with bizarre purple energy everywhere. Just then, one of his subordinates appears to give a report to the family head, Balza. The soldier then informs the big boss that Miss Lika has managed to reach the 2-star level. But the family leader doesn't seem the least bit impressed and asks what the problem is with that. The man says she is a prodigy and could even reach the 5-star level by the time she graduates. Balza says that talent doesn't matter and tells the guy to inform him only when she is actually useful. The soldier then reveals that even with all that power, Lika was completely defeated in combat. Then the big boss is surprised and asks if she happened to fight one of the older sons. However, the man denies it and says that the one who defeated her was a boy of the same age named Zeke. Upon hearing the name, the family leader remembers that our MC is the illegitimate son of that woman. He thinks that the boy's mother had a talent for fighting, but that she is no longer with them. Balza wonders who trained the young man, and the soldier says he defeated Lika without anyone's help. And to make matters worse, he even reached the 2-star level using his own power. Hearing this, the big boss says that they can then begin what he calls the first judgment. The soldier is shocked and asks if it isn't too early, as they have only been training formally for a month. The leader says it doesn't matter because only the strong survive and the rest is of no importance. With an unfriendly look, he shouts that whoever doesn't pass is not worthy of being an Eldragon. Without caring about anything else, the man simply tells the soldier to call someone named Freya. The soldier is confused, and the chief says that the fact that Zeke defeated Lika is very intriguing. With that, he will assign Freya to supervise the judgment and monitor the young man closely. The leader then turns and with a slight smile says that Zeke is indeed very interesting. The next day, the whole group is in the courtyard training martial arts with great determination. The blue-haired boy practices his punches with a lot of energy and seems much more confident than before. Meanwhile, our MC trains by lifting giant rocks, showing absurd strength. It's explained that their martial art was created by the 15th chief and is very simple. The friend then approaches and asks if Zeke isn't going to practice the martial art, and he says he already is. The young man says he learned the technique in seconds, and the blue-haired boy freaks out at his speed. The protagonist then says his friend's power flow is all wrong and that he can help. Our MC then drops the rock on the ground and calls his friend over to show him how it's done. He then tells the blue-haired boy to turn around, and the young man obeys, a bit confused by the situation. With a touch on the back, the protagonist releases his energy and corrects his friend's power flow. He then says that is the correct flow, and the blue-haired boy thanks him, all happy. The blue-haired boy apologizes for having doubted Zeke, and the MC gets ticked off by the distrust. Then the young man explains that it's the first time someone other than his father has taught him something. He thought the technique would be boring for someone so strong, but Zeke surprised him. Our MC says that's not true and that he was impressed with the art's stability. He remembers that his children found his technique too difficult, and that's why they never learned it. The ancient technique was super powerful but very complex, with several different forms. He remembers that his ancient technique had the power to defeat even a divine dragon and wonders how it is now. With a big smile, the young man says he has already learned the new art and will now go back to his usual training. The protagonist then tells his friend that everyone learns at their own pace and that it's okay. At that moment, the blue-haired boy calls Zeke with a very determined and serious look. With his eyes shining, he asks his friend to train him in the same way he helped him before. Our MC is a bit surprised by the request, and the blue-haired boy says he knows it's a bit of a shameless request. The boy shouts that he wants to get stronger, and Zeke simply agrees without much thought. Ranges is shocked by the response, and the protagonist finds his reaction very strange. He then says that he doesn't lie and that his friend has the potential to be taught by him. Suddenly, Lika appears, all embarrassed, and says she would also like to train with him. The blue-haired boy freaks out at the news, and the girl asks if there's any problem with that. She explains that she thought she was the strongest, but in the fight, he surpassed her and used lightning better than she did. The girl says her pride was completely crushed, and the MC wonders if it's his fault. With a determined look, she shouts that she wants to surpass her siblings and even Zeke, and asks him to train her. The young man becomes pensive about the girl's request while his friend watches everything in silence.